Anything that was different than the other one? Anything that you want to ask? Any questions? Anybody else want to ask anything? Oh, straight to the bar.
Yeah.
Over there, yeah, great.
Just wait for
I guess the key thing for me coming from reading the book and what I loved about the book was the conversation that Decker always had with the hot button face, the mask. And I know that they brought a bit more of that into the film, but it seemed to be more towards the end, whereas from what I remember in the book, it was an ongoing conversation, and that's what I really liked about it. How did that come into play? Did you want to bring more of that into it, or was that something that...
Well, Decker's an incredibly important character, isn't he? I mean, if you watch it, his dialogue with his mask is really, really important, isn't it? He's telling us about his internal madness, isn't he? He's telling us that he isn't a sound human being, but he's a manipulator. He's a kind of like a Dr. Lecter. He's very, there's a split personality at play there. And it was really important for me to bring that back into that film because you really couldn't see it in the movie. He's just a malevolent kind of killer. He's a slasher in NightBreed. In this film, it's much more complex. I mean, it's really interesting because if you've read the novel, or everyone else who's read the novel knows that he does meet his demise in the novel. But I often say this when we all meet in Q&As that whoever stayed dead in a horror movie? Yeah, who stayed dead in a horror movie? If Decker needs to come back in another NightBreed movie, I'm sure he will. But yeah, he's just a really great character, and I think that he's much better represented in that film. So yeah. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you got more from it. So, right. Anybody anything else they'd like to ask? You're quiet.
It's very late at night.
Isn't it? Okay, yeah, Fiona, what would you like to ask?
What percentage of the rediscovered footage was actually used?
Well, you can often see, you'll all have noticed that there are some scenes that were in the other version that I've actually favoured the recut version. Did you guys notice that? Yeah, and I did that because there was much more material within those scenes, and there was more actually going on that was character development. But right now, I'd say that it's about 70% work print and 30% theatrical version. So yeah, that's what it stands at the moment, and that's because all that footage was missing from the other movie. So yeah, that was really important. Yeah.
Also, there were some subtle differences in some of the performances and some of those work print versions, which, although subtle, once they are put together, can make a big difference and take the whole scene in a completely different way.
Anything else? Anybody want to ask? You almost had your hand up.
Oh, sorry.
I didn't see you, sorry.
He's behind me. You said earlier on that you went through the novel again, all the cuts and versions, and 2 scripts.
2 scripts, yeah.
How much of the final work, or while you were working, or I should say, rephrase that, how much Clive Barker himself had an input on the final version that we saw tonight?
Sure. Well, I can honestly say that
Thank you.
I made this film for me and Clive Barker. I didn't make it for anybody else at the point in time when... This is, the thing I need to explain, this is version 6. So this is the 6th cut of this film. And the first cut, when I took it to Clive and he watched it, his first reaction was very emotive. He cried tears of joy. And then a week later I get an email saying Clive has some notes for you. Now if anybody knows anything about Clive Barker, we know that he's a very intellectual, very developed human being. I was kind of scared of getting, the only time I've ever been scared of anything, Clive's going to give me some notes. And he gave me his notes, and there were 4 bullet points. And he wanted, at the beginning, it goes boon, boon when he's first introduced, yeah? It said that 3 times, and we cut one of those out. He wanted to move a scene around in Boone's hallucinations, so he wanted to move something 2 places. Because, when Boone's dead and Laurie goes to visit him, he wanted to put the echo of Johnny B. Good in there. And then at the end, he wanted me to heighten the music on the Gone with the Wind sequence. So there were 4 things. Now, to say that this film is almost 2 hours 20 minutes long and Clive Barker asked you to do 4 things, I must have done okay. Yeah, but Clive has really used social media and everything else to promote that this is the version of the film that he wants to see. And the greatest honour of my time in doing this is to share a credit with him that he gave to me because his belief. And he now says that the film belongs to me and Mark Miller as much as it belongs to him, which is very, very kind of him. So, but he's a wonderful human being, and he sends his love to you guys. Every time I do one of these, I tell him the questions afterwards. I tell him about the experience, the audience, etc. And he can't believe that NightBreed has a second life 22 years later. Some of you guys, who's seen this for the first time tonight? That's amazing. So, and when these guys, I'm going to let them talk because they always complain that I talk all the time. Right, so when they made this film, it never got as much attention first time round as it is now. So, Nick, you tell everybody.